Okay, so now let's turn our attention to, let's discuss something you all should be familiar with, since it was covered in your required reading. I'm going to focus on Jakodian today. Jakodian is located about 60 kilometers southwest of Beijing, and the fossils, I'm talking about human ancestral fossils, of course, and these fossils found in the caves in this area are among the oldest found outside of Africa. The individuals, I guess we'll call them people, who lived in these caves were a fascinating people. Living approximately 500,000 BC, they were doing two things that many anthropologists would have thought impossible so early: creating stone tools and using fire. Now then, yes?
Professor, I read that chapter and reread it, actually, but there's something I don't quite get. I mean, that date you give, it seems awfully early to be using fire, doesn't it? I always heard that controlling fire is what led humanity away from the Stone Age, but the Stone Age lasted for 400,000 more years, right? So you're telling us it took, another 400,000 years to figure things out and leave the Stone Age behind? I don't know if I buy it.
Yes, you bring up a good point. For starters, technically speaking, there were 3 Stone Ages. We haven't gone over this before? Okay, let me give you the nutshell version. The Stone Age is the period of time in which the tools that humans used were largely made of, you guessed it, stone. In other words, it was a time that predated the use of metals for tool making. The Stone Age is divided into 3 eras, and each of these is, subdivided into 3 periods. So, are you with me so far? There were 3 Stone Age eras, and each era was divided into 3 periods.
How do they differentiate between the eras?
Good question. I'll get to that in a second. The first era is called the Paleolithic era, or more casually, the Old Stone Age. Now, while time periods vary depending on the region, the Paleolithic era is generally agreed to have begun around 2 million years ago and continued until around 10,000 BC. It is marked by the appearance of stone tools. The earliest of these tools were called choppers. Now, choppers were really little more than rocks that had their edges flaked away and were used for, chopping. They were the precursors to the axe, which also came into existence during the Paleolithic era. This period also saw the beginning of communal hunting and extensive fishing. The Middle Stone Age, or the Mesolithic era, which is the second of the 3 periods, began around 10,000 BC and lasted until, roughly 6,000 BC. This is the period of time that most people think of when they think of the Stone Age. What differentiates the Mesolithic era from the Paleolithic era is the use of microlithic tools, or microliths. Now, microliths are essentially small chipped stone barbs or blades that are used as spearheads or arrowheads.
That seems a little odd that it took, nearly 2 million years to go from choppers to spearheads, doesn't it? I mean, didn't it occur to anyone to simply make them smaller and strap them onto a stick?
Changes in primitive societies take lots of time. Remember that we are looking at this from a different perspective. We have the benefit of knowing what a bow and arrow are, but these primitive people had little in their experience to suggest the creation of these tools. It's like the invention of the wheel. Once you see it, it's obvious. But the genius is in seeing what has never been seen before.
Yes, I've heard that same thing said about buttons. I mean, how simple is a button? But humanity didn't have buttons for years and years because no one could conceive of them.
Yes, that's correct. But let me return to the 3 eras of the Stone Age. During the Mesolithic, we also see the beginning of the earliest permanent settlements, with farming becoming a source of food. The final era of the Stone Age was the New Stone Age, or Neolithic period. The Neolithic era was characterized by large communities dependent upon domesticated animals and farming, and both pottery and weaving appear. This period extended from the end of the Mesolithic period to the beginning of the Bronze Age at around 2500 BC.
Wait a minute. Is the Mesolithic era the early or middle Stone Age? I seem to have gotten my notes mixed up.
Here's something that will help you remember the technical names for these periods. The prefix neo in Neolithic means new. Lithic means made of stone or related to stone tools. So think of Neolithic as new stone. Now, what do you suppose the Meso in Mesolithic stands for?
Middle?
And I suppose Paleo means early?
Excellent deduction. Yes, Meso means middle and Paleo means early. So Mesolithic means middle stone and Paleolithic means early stone. Have you all got it now? Remember, people, you have to know this basic stuff for the test. And it's all in the textbook. Now, where was I before we got sidetracked? Ah, right. Fossils in Jacodian.